professors that have been offered SZL favors by students or students that have offered SZL favors to professors. What happened? Not exactly being offered SZL favors for a grade. But when I was a TA in a certain small humanities department, there was this anonymous campus confession site that was a big trend with the undergrad students at our university. Lots of confessions about wanting to certain professors' TAs. One day, a confession appeared on the page from a student who had a crush on a male TA from our department, which went into rather lurid detail about everything she, or he, couldn't tell, wanted to do to him. And it mentioned the TA's gorgeous blue eyes. I suppose the student didn't think that was too identifying. But they severely underestimated how small our department was. We had 10 graduate students total, 4 of whom were TAing that semester. I was one of them. But I'm a girl. And 2 of the guys had brown eyes. The only male TA with blue eyes was mighty uncomfortable and had to go through the rest of the semester knowing that one of the students in his section was sitting in class every day having elaborate SZL fantasies about him. Mad feelings for this one professor. He had me collect the student surveys at the very end of the course. It was just me and him left. And it seemed like my perfect chance. Me. So I'm from X city if you're ever around there. Him evading. Haha, oh wow, you're from there? That's cool. Me. Right, so if you're either around that area feel free to email me. Him. Evading so hard. Oh who? What? Me. Just email me if you ever wanna get coffee. And then he just started backing away from me, shaking his head and going ooh. TLDR. Got rejected hard. Short story from someone I used to know. She was struggling in her astronomy class and went into office hours for the professor. She kept making hints and using body language to signal she was DTF. But apparently the prof just kept slowly moving the picture of his family on his desk further towards her until she left. My dad was my mom's statistics professor in college. So I guess I happened. He and my brother constantly give her for getting an easy A. She got the D. Make out W a person at a dance party. 4 days later I walk into my new semester class. She was the professor. We were both a little surprised. I was the network admin at a 3,500 student university and had a girl ask me a couple of obviously leading questions about how the grading software worked and if I had access to it. I did, but changes were audited. Then lean in close to whisper in my ear, being careful to drag her breast against my arm as she did so. That she would do. ONYTHING. I wanted if I would give her a B in a class she needed to graduate that spring. I also had an aunt offer me what she thought was the amazingly large sum of $500 if I would fabricate a complete degree for the son of some church friend of hers. The amazing thing is that 2 professors and 1 academic support staff lost their jobs trying to do the same sort of thing for students while I was there. ONYTHING. Except study. Back in high school I saw a girl I knew walking around drunk in the middle of a shopping center, so I offered her a ride home. We had a math class together and she asked me if I thought our teacher was weird. I didn't think he was. She then told me how he lent her lunch money one day and to pay him back she tried to him. But he turned her down. For something as little as lunch money. It shook her that he turned her down. I then had to turn her down in exchange for the ride home. Now she probably thinks I'm weird. That sounds like the girl went through some traumatizing. School excursion. 12th grade, Germany. Most were around 18 by then. That one girl told us that she's about to get her grade upped by eyeing the teacher who was with us and went over to his room. 5 minutes later, that teacher came knocking on our door, the room where most of us were just having a small party drinking and smoking pot, and we all panicked. After about 10 seconds we had hidden most of the harder stuff and opened the door to see our teacher entering with a bottle of whiskey in his hand. No booze here? I thought you're having a party? After 15 minutes and about a quarter of that bottle, he left us again and told us to have an eye on that girl, because she will surely not be happy with the grade he will give her. And that trying to him wouldn't make it any better. Not me, but a professor friend of mine. Was older guy in late 40s teaching a business MBA class. Student in her late 30s gives him a card after exam grades were insane. She has liked him all semester and would like to go out with him. That was like 11 years ago. They have been happily married for 9 years now. My friend is an adjunct professor of psychology and very gay. He would tell me of at least 3 freshman girls a year who would offer to do anything for a better grade. I was an adjunct instructor at a small regional college and a female student had tried multiple times to get on my good side for a better grade. First she brought in donuts, then pizza, and finally one day she stayed late after class and suggestively asked if there were other ways she could improve her grades. Being a socially inept male, it took a little bit for that to sink in, but once I got the idea I kindly asked her to leave. She did and I thought that was that. Except it wasn't. Turns out she reported me for sexual harassment. Nothing ever came of it however since she ended up getting into trouble, drugs I think, and dropped out of school. Even still it was a very scary moment for me and factored into my decision to leave teaching and pick a different career. I had a biostats prof who consistently gave this one attractive blonde high grades despite her average performance on exams. 2 other male classmates caught wind of this and confronted the professor. He denied any wrongdoing and even convened a class-wide meeting to address the accusation. 5 years later, he was arrested and convicted of sexual assault. He apparently groped a female student in his office. My brother is a professor at a large state school. He was propositioned so many times by students that he and the other 3 professors in their office suite agreed to arrange their office hours so that none of them would ever have to be alone with a student. Female or male? Seriously. I was teaching an astronomy class in graduate school when the girlfriend of one of my roommates, both undergrads, offered to orally pleasure me for a B. And the roommate was okay with that. I passed on the offer. I know my mom banged a professor in college. Ta-da. Here I am. When I was 7 I had this principal who would bring kids into his office for minor transgressions and then yell at the back of your neck all closed so you could feel his breath. It made the hairs on my neck stand up. He later turned out to be a pedophile. Nothing was offered in exchange for anything. But here is my story. Chemistry 111 freshman year. Lab TA was attractive and smart. My lab partner, being the son of 2 chemists, had a hard time grasping chemistry 111. So we spent extra time on labs than other groups. This led to more time with attractive, interesting TA, which led to me hanging out with TA more and more, which led to us dating. And now almost 20 years of marriage. I still bring up the time she gave me a 0 on a lab paper for not showing my work. Also, my lab partner ended up with a career in a chemistry lab. Edit. Not to me, but to my father. He was having a meeting with a student in his lab. His colleague was working across the room. The student was coming on hard to him and he was doing his absent-minded professor thing and didn't really notice what she was up to. The colleague was apparently just killing himself at my dad's refusal to notice what was going on. He, the colleague, proceeded to tell that story at most every faculty party. Which is how I heard it. Was a TA teaching a general bio class. Girl sent me an email suggesting a hookup. I immediately forwarded it to my boss. And then replied to the girl that it was against the school's academic integrity rules. Coulda gotten me kicked out of my masters if I did. College is way too expensive to get kicked out with no degree. No way in hell I was gonna risk that. I didn't see much of that student after that. I'm pretty sure she had a drug problem and dropped out. Hope she got her life together. Because she was actually a nice person when we did interact in class. My advice. Make sure your bosses know immediately anything like this happens. People have let it get to the your word against mine stage when allegations start flying. And with no clear evidence the college may cut you loose on the chance you did break the rules. My dad asked my mom out literally the day after he taught her the final class of the semester. They've been married for 28 years. Edit. I guess I should clarify that my mom was 23 or so and my dad is 10 years older than her. They've always felt like they had a pretty normal, boring relationship to me. Lots of couples meet in strange ways. And I don't think the way they met affected their long-term relationship in any significant way. You know what's kept them together all those years? Super kinky student-teacher roleplay. Imagine it. 2 English lit professors are dirty AF. I had an English professor that would make every class write an essay on whether or not it was morally okay for a college professor to date a student. The hot girls that said they were okay with it, he'd ask them out. That seems like it might attract attention from higher up, being a yearly thing. Not involved in the story, but the principal at my high school is married and has a kid with a woman he taught in freshman year. Edit. Looking at the replies, I guess this happens a lot. Edit 2. The same guy fired another teacher because he took one of his, the teacher, female students home after practice one day. Edit 3. Not a prof, but I dated 2 professors in grad school. Stayed with the second one. Moved to a new state with her and had a child together. Joke's on me. She cheated on me with another one of her students. Got pregnant and had his baby. Now I'm looking for a new place to live. Life is like a box of rotten 9 chocolate. A TA at my school sent drunk texts out to nearly all the girls in my class. It was a picture of, yep, you guessed it, his dick. To everyone's surprise, he wasn't reported and continues to suck at teaching to this day. Edit. For clarification, he wasn't reported to authorities, so there could be an investigation. Some of the male students talked to the overseeing professor, but the TA denied everything and none of the ladies would come forward with the photos for fear or whatever other motivation. Edit 2. I forgot a detail. He sent it as a group text so they all knew who else got the message. Reminder that you're imagining all these people as far more attractive than they probably are. Pretty cute math prof I had my sophomore year. I did fine in the class. But on summer break she was trying to hook up. She came over one time but smelled really bad. Like within 4 feet of her. All you smelled was a mix of feet, some weird ass perfume, and old lady smell. Did not bang. The crazy really came out after that. 10/10. Not a professor. And I told this story before. But here we go. One of the teachers in my college was forced into sex by a student with a long, massive list of transgressions. Not good grades. Just sex. We were still in a dictatorship at the time and her family was very influential politically, giving her the possibility to threaten him into doing so. Teacher confirmed the rumor when the girl, drunk, decided speed dating a concrete bridge in a car on the highway was a brilliant idea. He was never bothered for it. One of the teachers in my college was forced into sex by a student with a long, massive, go on, list of transgressions. Oh. I'm a professor. Usually female students are flirtatious but not overly blatant with me. But one time a female student found me on Facebook and messaged me. I want to have your baby. Is that something you'd be interested in? It was flattering but I said no thank you. Not to me. But a story my high school English teacher shared about her time teaching at another high school. Some teenage boy was coming on to her. But apparently she was popular enough that when he decided to make a suggestive comment during class, the other boys in the class got up and walked him out. She never heard anything inappropriate from him again. Guy here. Had an English lit professor who had a crush on me. She actually gave me a lap dance at a popular bar near the university one night and said, if you didn't have a girlfriend, the things I would do to you, not mentioning. She was married. She even wrote an email one time. Had we but whirled enough in time. Looking back, I think she had some issues. The real favors she did were writing me letters of recommendation and setting me up with this girl in our class. We were together for 3 years. I was a TA at a university. Stunning undergrad kept flirting with me throughout the semester. After spring semester ended and grades posted, she dropped by my office and we ate for the next few nights until she moved to the West Coast for employment. A professor from my university walked into his office to a completely naked freshman girl standing in there with a 6-pack of beer. I don't think she was looking for a better grade or anything. Was just attracted to him. He note right the out of there. Edit. For the love of God. People. Works 2 out of 3 times. A friend in high school openly told us all in the cafeteria that his goal for the year was to sleep with MRS. Capital P. By God he did it. She was smoking hot 10/10. He went back to her place after prom and she had to resign. They dated for a few years off and on. Then married with a couple kids now. That guy's name? Adjunct in engineering here. Male. Very few female students. Only once. One of them began trying to negotiate a better grade and put out escalating hints that a BJ was on the table. I just smiled. Wished her a good day. And kept my boner under the table. I think people don't realize how frequently this happens. It may not be an open SZL bribe, but students make hints every semester about this type of thing. Sometimes it is about a grade, sometimes it is not. If it is not about a grade, then it may go places and sometimes lasts. I actually know someone whose current marriage started out this way. If it is about a grade, it is just something to laugh at. There is no way that SX is even remotely worth a faculty member's years of school, research, and tenure. For those reading this that are thinking about trying to bribe a faculty member with SX, don't bother. Make those types of offers to their graduate students, TAs. They have much less to lose. They have much less chance of getting caught. They likely have just as much ability as the prof to impact your grade. I used to do charity work where I would teach mentally handicapped people how to use computers. Browse the internet. Type a letter. The works. I already knew one of our students. A woman with Down syndrome. Really liked me. But once she overly cheerily informed me that she finally got a birth control implant, I started to understand in what way she liked me. But no. Did not bang. My dad was a college professor. Cheated on my mom with one of his students. Got her pregnant. Left my mom. Me and my 3 brothers. For younger woman and new daughter. Left the state. Had another daughter. Yeah. It was a tight childhood. Architecture professor touched my butt once. I stopped showing up for class. It's a shame. I really believed him when he said I was talented. He had been talking to me about grad school. I ended up getting a B in the course. I was grading computer lab assignments. The prof asked me to help with watching over the large class during the exam. Whenever the prof left the room, one of the girls in the class would come up to ask me a question. She leaned over the table and I had a full view down her shirt. Me being very naive with girls, I hadn't realized she was doing this on purpose. So, like a dummy, I was sitting there answering questions. I wasn't giving out right solutions to the problems. But I'm sure I was being more helpful than I should have. It wasn't until later that I realized she was doing it on purpose. I know 2 cases. Guy 1 was dating the faculty advisor of the club he was in after the faculty member got separated. She got a divorce later and they are married now. He also co-parents a daughter from the previous marriage. Guy number 2, there was this one super attractive professor that taught humanities. Every guy I knew wanted her class since it was required for our degrees. A guy on my senior design team had a one-night stand with this professor after running into each other at the bar. I learned this from another professor. I was a physiology and anatomy TA. I had one female student who I had to touch her chest for a heart rate monitor demonstration. I was intensely turned on and it was probably obvious to most of the class. It was a nursing class of 100% female students. After the course ended, she contacted me and we got to talking. And I took her to a club. We got drunk. Back at my place. As we were finishing SX, I cheesily shouted out, "I'm giving you an A." Her face turned sour and she said in a very seething way, "Thanks, but I already got my grades back and it was a B+, yeah." Awkward. Later I learned she had a boyfriend and he was okay with us dancing. Whatever that meant. It ended there. Boyfriend is a cuck. When I was in high school, I did pretty well on tests to the point I scr'd by with never doing homework. In one class though, at the end of the year I had like a 68 and was gonna fail. My teacher had me stay after class. Closed the door. Said if I gave her a good enough back rub she'd change my grade. I sucked it up and gave her a really awkward shoulder rub. And she did as promised. Later heard rumors she got in trouble for messing around with her students. It's really not that scandalous for an undergrad and a TA or GPTIABD to date a student. Not really scandalo for a newer professor to date a grad student. Maybe a little eyebrow raising with an undergrad. But not big of a deal. No one cared, to be honest. I teach at a state school. And as long as you are not grading their papers, it's not a taboo. The only real scandalo in my debt was when a professor dumped his wife, who put his ass through school, took care of him after an accident that left him disabled, left her grad program to further his career, be his nurse. For a sophomore, he was in his late 50s. That was an scandalo. As his daughter, who also attended the university, knew said sophomore, the new wife was his daughter's little sister in their sorority. Responding to this question previously is how I got the nickname Professor Douche Canoe. I'm convinced my high school art teacher had a crush on me. He would always go back and forth in class. And she claimed I was annoying. 3 years after I graduated I went back home and went out for a drink. And she was there faced. She came over, told me I was attractive, proceeded to slap me in the face for all those times in class I was an asshole. She used force. It hurt. And told me I was the type to never get married. She had just turned 30 and got married recently. Eventually her husband came over from the other side of the bar and said it was to go. I sent her a friend request on Facebook to no avail and haven't seen her since. There are entirely too many ethical people in this thread. The others don't want to hang themselves on Reddit. I was a senior in college and I was failing my last elective class, geology, as I was also prepping for my senior thesis show. I was an art school student. The final rolled around and I didn't have time to study at all for it. So I emailed my professor in a fit of panic because I really couldn't afford to take that class again, and not thinking, told him I would do anything he wants me to do for him, implying extra credit work, and that I'd come by his office or meet after hours. That I was desperate to pass and would do whatever I could to make him happy. I never got a response. But I did end up with an undeserved C in the class. I was embarrassed. But that guy must have been terrified. I don't know why an English professor would ever ask a student out once classes are done. They know better than to end something with a proposition. Added a word. I'm the only male TA in a Psychology 101 undergraduate class. And the professor has just assigned a term paper on any psychology related topic of the student's choice, provided it is approved by a TA and spoken into a microphone in front of everyone in order to prevent redundant topics. An 18-year-old with a body built for the bedroom makes her way up to me and asks, "I'd like to know why girls are attracted to bad boys." Being professional, I'd discuss possible areas of investigation with evolutionary psychology theories about how risk-taking behavior can indicate reproductive fitness, and how arousal is closely associated with sympathetic nervous system responses to danger. She then, in front of 300 plus students, the professor, my fellow TAs, the dean of the college who happened to be visiting, asks, "Are you a bad boy?" Laughs were had. Then I redirected her to another TA to better focus her thesis because I'm not a degenerate. I remember asking my history teacher to bang for better grades. Sadly she wasn't down for it and neither were my classmates. I have more homeschooled stories if anyone's interested. Y'all. Recorders and webcams. Please make use of them. I too work in a college, but not as a teacher. Anytime a student or staff is in my office where it's just us two, I immediately hit a macro on my keyboard that starts my webcam to secretly record a file I can delete later. I know someone might come back with recording laws. And they're right. So just don't tell anyone you're doing it. But all I know is that if some BS went down, I'd rather be hit with some recording law than a false SZUL harassment RP whatever case. If nothing happens, like 999% of the time, then cool, delete the vid. Nobody is the wiser.